So this lecture will begin the section on the fourth kosha. And that layer of ourselves is called the Vijnanamaya Kosha. This is the body of wisdom it's usually referred to. It's the layer of our consciousness that sits underneath the sort of what we think of as our conscious mind, our Maya Kosha. And often this kosha is associated with intuition because the wisdom that we are receiving, right, is coming from a deeper place inside ourselves, which is connected to the universal. So it's the part of your intuition that is always right because it's aligned with satya or truth. And when we practice to balance this kosha, we're basically trying to remove barriers that shield us from the truth of who we are. And the primary practice for this is meditation. Because meditation allows us to change our ordinary perspective and receive that information that's coming from a deeper space within ourselves. The other way to look at this kosha would be to call it the kosha of discrimination. And it's discrimination between the unreal, which is our perception, or Maya, as you might have heard it. It's our perception that is not being informed by our spiritual self, and the real, where the spiritual and the mundane are fused together, right? Or, the other way to look at it would be that they're not actually separate, right? And that would not be illusion. That would not be Maya when you combine those two, or when those two are perceived to be one. So when this kosha is disordered and unbalanced, what happens is that we have a real lack of guidance in our lives, and we're informed by aspects of our mind and personality that are totally unconscious. And so we're unbalanced and we're guided by our past conditioning, whether it's from this life or past lives, if you sort of subscribe to that way of looking at the world. So basically you have things informing you in an unconscious way when this is unbalanced, and you're being guided, and your sort of personality is working off of this system where it's constantly repeating things, right? Coming out of this kosha, like problems in this kosha just keep manifesting over and over again. And what it kind of feels like or looks like, right, is that we have attitudes and beliefs that infuse our mental processes on every level. And this is why balancing this kosha often yields really good results. And we especially see this in conditions that have what you might call a self-sabotage component, such as depression or addiction or social anxiety, these types of behaviors among many others. But when you have, when you find yourself or others doing things, right, that are definitely, not in our or their best interest, often this kosha really needs to be looked at. The main practices for balancing this are meditation practices. And as you know, I'm sure, there are many methods of meditation. And Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras reminds us of this. And he reminds us that there are many ways to meditate that will bring us the serenity, basically, we're looking for if you look at Sutras 132 through 139. He leaves it a bit open in 139, saying persistent meditation in harmony with your religious heritage. So it's always good to know what you don't know, and it would seem that Patanjali, right, knew he didn't know every meditation technique or way to go about this. And also there he implies that meditating on something bigger than ourselves is always useful. So whatever your version of that is, whatever your God is, or your version of that would always be useful. So there's a big wide world of this, and pretty much any meditation technique, taking it to its conclusion and regularly practiced, would help to balance this kosha. In general, you're going to want, if you think you're having a problem on this level, you're going to want your client forming a meditation practice that works for them. Another point coming from the yoga perspective to note is that often in our tradition, pranayama, right, is to be used to obtain fitness for the process of meditation. And there are exceptions to this, but it's often a good idea to heed this advice. It's kind of what makes yoga special, right, is that we have these ways of entering and moving into the mind that are very specific to yoga, including the asana, pranayama, meditation sort of sequence. So in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali outlines the process of meditation, that I guess, he practiced and the way he saw it. So there's dharana, right, which is concentration. And then there's dhyana, which is meditation, it's the second stage. And then samadhi, which is concentrating and then having a steady flow in meditation, and then entering the higher state of consciousness, which is, or merging, you could think of it, which is samadhi. And then when all these processes work well together, you have samyama, which is the mind sort of acting with its full potential. So it's concentrating, it's meditating, it's sort of achieving higher consciousness, and it's doing this all harmoniously. So that's the kind of Patanjali method. So it starts with concentration is the main thing to pick up here. And many traditions have this idea of concentrating on an object, whether it's external, like staring at a flame, or internal, like an image or an idea, right, inside. And basically, this is a workout for the mind so it can develop enough ability to concentrate that it moves into meditation, which is the mind basically continuously staying on that object and not getting distracted. And once this is achieved, we are able to experience samadhi. And there are really a lot of forms of samadhi, and in the yogic text, there's many descriptions of like the stages of samadhi. But the basic idea is that the mind and the object become one, and there are absolutely no more distinctions. So as opposed to, total concentration, a flow between them, which is meditation, then you have samadhi where there is no distinction. You're no longer focusing on an object because you and the object are the same. And then when this happens, people often have larger, what they would call often spiritual experiences that can shift their perception in a deeper and possibly more permanent way. Sometimes I like to think of it when you reach samadhi states, it opens you up to what's possible. So now your sort of frame of reference is widened in a permanent way. Even if you can't stay in that state all the time, you know that it's possible. So that's another way to think about it. So most conditions will be benefited by reaching the dhyana state, the meditation state. So the Buddhist traditions sometimes identify this as a state of tranquility, and I like that word, a tranquility state. And this is really what most people, not all people, because there's the higher states in how yoga thinks about it, but the tranquility state is what almost all people are searching for. The ability to feel at peace with just being. And this level of meditation will usually balance this kosha and help it really help resolve issues emanating from it. And then sometimes it needs to be bumped up a notch and more towards what we would call samadhi states. And that's more when that's the case, the person you're working with or yourself will know that to be true. Because you'll have achieved the meditation state and be tranquil and realize that there's something more that needs to happen. So we would never, I'm bringing that up because we would never make that happen or force that on someone else. That interest would come from them. So the possibilities, when we teach meditation, I'm sure many of you watching or all of you watching maybe have meditated or have a meditation practice or have had a meditation practice or I guess will have a meditation practice. So the question is, how do we teach meditation? And there's many ways to focus. So if you're going in with the original focusing, some of the ones we're going to look at are focusing on the breath, focusing on a mantra, which is either Hindu or not, but for some people it's the names of God. Other people it's a vibration, right, that changes you physically as you meditate, and it can also be an idea. So there's different ways to look at mantra. Another way is to actually focus on the thoughts themselves, and that's usually done with watching them come and go, arise and fall, and seeing that they're impermanent is the basic point of that. Another way to go with focusing your thoughts is shifting them on purpose, as we do in meditation, and moving our thoughts towards the heart and love, and directing thoughts towards love for ourselves and love for others, and eventually love just as a concept, love for everything, and the actual idea of love. You can also focus within the body and on energetic centers. A popular one would be focusing on the heart. So that's a possibility to sort of move towards the heart center and focus your feeling, your noticing, and also your intention there. There's a bunch of techniques where you focus on subtle perceptions in the body. And then, of course, there are many, many more, but these are just some of the different ways, right? If you stop and think about it, many of you might already know all of these ways and be like, oh, wow, I know, 7 meditation techniques I've done, or 10 meditation. There's really quite a few of them. Often, just as an aside, people will call something a meditation, which is fine. It's just a language thing, but that is actually a contemplation or a thought process. And it's not actually meditation or concentration, right? So we're going to be looking here more at how these techniques bring us into meditation, right? Actual meditation, where we're sort of deep enough in it where we're fusing with our object. Now, the reason we're as yoga therapists are going to need facility in many methods is because our clients are going to be really, really different. And it's important for us to have experience of several methods so we can instruct them. And in this case, it's also important not to only use our own experience, with meditating, since we're not our clients. So for many, for instance, watching the breath, right, is an easy way into meditation, right? And for others, it's totally maddening and frustrating. For some, meditation, directing the thoughts towards, thoughts of love towards ourselves and others is, kind of an obviously good idea, and will be really appealing and kind of easy and lead us into meditative states. For others, it brings up thousands of self-hating or hatred of other people or whatever vrittis moving through the mind. So it kind of moves us away from a meditative state. So ideally, in my opinion, we help our clients kind of find the path of least resistance as they try to do this. So in years of yoga therapy practice, I have not found it beneficial to kind of force the issue most of the time to get clients to break through blocks, which is the way it's often taught. Often if you are taught meditation tradition, you have your method, of course, and then sort of, let's say, sitting through pain, right, is a very common thing that people are told to do. You're uncomfortable. That's just part of watching your mind during that pain. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but I found in a therapeutic context usually doesn't work. So we, as yoga therapists, have many meditation techniques available to us. We also have other techniques, like the asana pranayama meditation equation is unique to yoga and a real treasure, and we can use that, get people towards meditation. And that said, there's often some method of meditation that will be eventually kind of appealing and relatively simple for any given client. So other things we've talked about in this course, pranayama and sort of using the pranayama that's right for your client and movement that's right for your client, it's the same with meditation. And even if, you are a more rigid person with your own meditation practice, especially if you're a very experienced meditator. And if you are, then you know, of course, that sort of working through things that are hard for you have been good for you. But that's not necessarily true in the therapeutic context, because really we're trying to get them as quickly as possible to a state of tranquility, so that this kosha can be balanced. And with that balanced kosha, whatever we'll call them symptoms, right, are happening will decline, and that's our job. So it's a little different than just simply teaching someone meditation. And then, of course, we want to know, there's a reason why we're doing this. Like, we want to know, well, what does it look like when this kosha, this fourth kosha, right, is balanced? And what you usually see is a clarity, a mental clarity that results that allows a person to feel confident in the decisions they're making. So health, right, which we're often dealing with, is easier to find or maintain because the client's now guided from a place of intuitive knowing the actions they're taking, the practices they're doing, their lifestyle changes they're making, their decisions are beneficial for them. And this allows, when you know that to be true, it allows one, right, to replace deep-seated negative patterns with more useful ones. So that's how you know it's working. Your client, is being guided by themselves, by their, like, a sort of deeper place, an intuitive place where, if they're working with you, maybe, you're giving them practice and they're like, I know this is a good idea. They know, as opposed to you knowing. It sort of turns on you. And they're like, that is a good idea. I know this to be true. And now I can actually make meaningful changes that will benefit me. So as always, I thank you for your time and attention. Om Shanti, Om Peace.